international committees to control and interrupt flows of goods, energy, food and information to their enemies. It was the severe impact on Central Europe and the Middle East, where hundreds of thousands died of hunger and disease, and civilian society was gravely dislocated, that made the blockade seem such a potent weapon. Today, more than a century after the Great War, these measures have a different but more widely known name: economic sanctions. How economic sanctions arose in the 3 decades after World War I and developed into their modern form is the subject of this book. Their emergence signalled the rise of a distinctively liberal approach to world conflict, one that is very much alive and well today. Sanctions shifted the boundary between war and peace, produced new ways to map and manipulate the fabric of the world economy, changed how liberalism conceived of coercion, and altered the course of international law. They caught on rapidly as an idea propounded by political elites, civic associations, and technical experts in Europe's largest democracies, Britain and France, but also in Weimar Germany, in early fascist Italy, and in the United States. But then, as now, sanctions aroused opposition. From the outbreak of war in 1914 until the creation of the United Nations Organization in 1945, a diverse assortment of internationalists and their equally varied opponents engaged in a high-stakes struggle about whether the world could be made safe for economic sanctions. When the victors of World War I incorporated the economic weapon into Article 16 of the Covenant of the League of Nations, they transformed it from a wartime to a peacetime institution. Like other innovative aspects of the League's work in the realms of global economic governance, world health, and international justice, sanctions outlived the organization itself and continued as part of the United Nations after World War II. Since the end of the Cold War, their use has surged. Today, they are used with great frequency. In retrospect, the economic weapon reveals itself as one of liberal internationalism's most enduring innovations of the 20th century, and a key to understanding its paradoxical approach to war and peace. Based on archival and published materials in 5 languages across 6 countries, this book provides a history of the origins of this instrument. The original impulse for a system of economic sanctions came at the 1919 Paris Peace Conference from the British delegate Lord Robert Cecil and his French counterpart Léon Bourgeois. These men were unlikely partners. Cecil, an aristocratic barrister and renegade member of the Conservative Party, was a fervent free trader who became Britain's first minister of blockade during the war. Bourgeois, the son of a Republican watchmaker, worked his way up the professions to become a radical party prime minister in the 1890s and advocated a political theory of mutual aid known as solidarisme. But despite these different backgrounds, both Cecil and Bourgeois agreed that the League could and should be equipped with a powerful enforcement instrument. They envisioned deploying the same techniques of economic pressure used on the Central Powers against future challenges of the Versailles Order. Such recalcitrant countries would be labelled aggressors, a new morally loaded legal category, and subjected to economic isolation by the entire League. The methods of economic warfare were thus repurposed and refined for use outside a formally declared state of war. What made interwar sanctions a truly new institution was not that they could isolate states from global trade and finance. It was that this coercive exclusion could take place in peacetime. The significance of the birth of economic sanctions lies in this momentous shift in the meaning of war and peace. A coercive policy that used to be possible only in time of war, isolating human communities from exchange with the wider world, now became possible in a wider range of situations. Commercial and financial blockade, a policy developed as a form of economic war, was reconceived as a prophylactic against war. By carving out the space in which international economic sanctions have been used for the last century, the League thus had a much more profound impact on modern history than is usually assumed. Indeed, this book argues that the struggle to create and use the weapon of sanctions deeply shaped the interwar world, and thereby the structure of the political and economic order that we inhabit today. For one thing, it marked the international emergence of